UFC 313 just finished. We're going to rank every fight on the card from fight of the night to Dustin's title fights. The worst thing you could ever watch. On a scale, we have the early prelim opener here of Santos versus Diaz. And immediately, I'm giving this fight of the night. Not a single fight after this. Maybe one came close. Absolute brawl. It logged in at 8th most highest significant strikes of all time in a middleweight fight. These guys were throwing. This was a super close fight. It was 135 to 131 on significant strikes. Just a barn burner, total boxing fight. One takedown landed on a caught kick in the third round. Absolute war. It was a little bit sloppy in the third round, but you know what? That's what, like, it's a middleweight fight, okay? We're expecting sloppy. And these dudes were throwing bombs, and this was exciting. Nothing else lived up to this. I mean, there were some finishes that were exciting, but in terms of a total fight, this was the best thing on the entire card, and it was the first fight of the night. So, not a bad place to start, but next up we had Santos Marshall. I'm going to give this one B tier. Marshall was the heavy betting favorite going into the third round. He ultimately lost the decision. Not mad about it. I don't think it was a robbery. I think it was a close fight. Similar to Santos versus Diaz. Santos actually got the nod on this one against Marshall. Like I said, close fight. Santos got the nod. You know, nothing crazy. There was a knockdown here and there for each fighter. It was close. Marshall was kind of holding him down. Santos was doing more striking. Santos got the nod. I think it was fair. Morono versus Leal. I'm giving this an A tier performance from Leal. He finally got his get back after that absolute disgusting robbery from Renat. And, you know, he looked like the biggest favorite on the card in this fight. Absolutely devastating striking. I think the ref could have stopped it earlier. Just masterclass in combos, feeding the body, feeding the head. Morono was basically hanging there like a dead man walking with his hands to his side, and Leal got the finish, albeit a little bit late. Still a great performance overall. I cannot wait to see where Leal goes from this. Ferreira versus Petrosian. I'm going to give this one B tier. It was a good performance. I was not expecting Ferreira to get the submission, but an overall sloppy fight. There was a point taken on Petrosian's side for the multiple nut kicks. Deserved. The first one wasn't really that crazy of a low blow, but still, like, the ref needs to set the precedent, taking a point if there's a low blow, if there's an illegal strike, and he did. Ferreira looked slow. He looked kind of gassed out. Ferreira ultimately got the submission. Didn't look bad in doing so. You know, it wasn't the craziest performance. I think both guys look a little sluggish. Both looked a little timid, afraid of the power on the other side, but okay performance overall. I'm giving it B tier for that reason. Van versus, I'm not going to butcher that name, Soroya. I'm going to give it B tier as well. Van looked really good in the striking. Absolute masterclass in the striking. I don't even know if Soroya combined 20 strikes total across the whole fight. Van definitely did. He was just outclassing him 100%. You know, overall, it wasn't crazy. Soroya was landing the takedown here and there. Van was stuffing it. It was one-sided, but it wasn't outrageous. It was kind of what I expected, a Van decision. You know, he doesn't really go for the finish. He was landing good striking here and there. Safe fight, safe decision. Not terrible, but definitely not the worst thing we'd seen on the card to that point. Onto the main card, we only had a 5-fight prelims. We had 2 pullouts, obviously no Blades and no Chris Gutierrez fight on this card. Green versus Ruffy, I'm giving this A tier. Absolutely insane knockout by Mauricio Ruffy. Spinning head kick. Just wonderful, insane. Green dropped to his knees, you know, just flatlined. Awesome head kick. I want Ruffy, you know, he called for Dariush, give him Dariush. Give him someone ranked. He deserves it, man. Insane striking on display here. An awesome fight to watch. Really quick finish, but it was exciting. It was electric. Ruffy is someone to look out for. The fighting nerds are on fire the last couple years, and man, they did not disappoint here with Ruffy. He showed why he was such a big favorite, even though I was kind of questioning why the line was so differentiated between Green and Ruffy, but he showed why here. He got in stellar knockout, probably the knockout of the year contender so far for 2025. Next up, we had Lemos versus Lucino. Dustin's title fights right here. This is a Dustin Poirier title fight performance right here. Just an absolute piss poor, disgusting performance where you know the person you're rooting for is probably going to lose. 23 years old versus 37. And what the hell are we doing here? Number 5 rank versus number 7 rank in the world. This was by far the worst performance on the entire card and one of the worst performances of the year. Lemos parading around the octagon like she just scored one of the best fight decisions of the year, and I wasn't even sure that she won. I mean, Lucindo didn't score an entire strike for the first round, but even then, I was questioning whether she won or not. This was a terrible, just laughable performance from both women. Absolutely terrible. Halted the momentum greatly on the main card. Shouldn't have even been on there. Shouldn't have even been on this pay-per-view. A sad display of MMA. Just such a nothing fight. Does this put Lemos closer to the title? No. She suffered the worst defeat to Weili that we've ever seen in her title reign. Terrible fight. Terrible decision. Just a snore. Thankfully, we had Turner versus Bahamondes next. I'm going to still give this one B tier. Not quite A tier. Bahamondes did get the submission. Jalen Turner took off his gloves and attempted to retire his corner, trying to stop him at the end of this fight. I mean, dude, you're 14-9. You're not exactly elite. You had dominant position over Bahamondes for a majority of the fight, and then you got subbed in a triangle choke. I mean, what more is there to say? I predicted Bahamondes to win. Turner had a classic Turner performance, low IQ, getting himself in a finishing position and absolutely losing it and losing the fight in turn. Bahamondes gets ranked by Monday, good for him. Turner just, dude, like, what are you doing, man? You've practically handed away on a silver platter your last two fights, and this was a laughable performance. Good performance for Bahamondes, but Turner is just terrible. Gaethje versus Fiziev, we are going to be giving this one A tier. Almost my fight of the night. It was a bit back and forth. That's the only reason why. I think it was a bit dominant in first round. Gaethje wasn't really throwing much. Gaethje definitely turned the gas on around 2 and 3, and he deserved that win. He deserved the decision. It was a good fight. It was almost a mirror match of their first fight. But, you know, that wasn't to say I was disappointed. It was an electric, exciting fight. Gaethje had the knockdown in round 2. Round 3, they were trading shots. He had that clinch head kick. Absolutely insane performance from Gaethje. Fiziev still hanging in there for such a big layoff. I don't think he should hang his head low. I think that he should get back in there as soon as possible if he's not too injured and get his get-back fight, maybe against a Gamrot, maybe against Hooker, you know, whoever's available. But good performance. You know, you can't ask much more from this co-main, pure violence. I would have liked to see 5 rounds if Fiziev was booked from the beginning. But I still think Santos versus Diaz, from the point of view of I was not expecting it to be as exciting, it was more exciting and just a bit more even back and forth. Gaethje definitely took over the second and third round definitively. And that leaves us with the final fight of the night. I'm going to give this a C tier. Let me be absolutely clear. We are in for dark days in the light heavyweight division. By far the worst division head to toe in the entire UFC. Absolutely a dark, just decrepit division. So lacking of talent, and Alex Pereira was that shining light, holding this division together. He fought 4 times in title fights in the last 365 days, and now we have Ankalaev, a champion who will probably fight at most once a year, scaping by on just an absolute barely nothing of a win. 0 for 12 he went on takedowns. Terrible performance from both guys. Alex looked absolutely laughable. I think in this fight he was just a shadow of his former self. You know, he didn't look anything like he did in the Khalil Rountree fight, like he did in the Yuri fight, like he did in the Jamal Hill fight, like he did in the first Yuri fight, like he did in the Yan fight. Any fight you look at light heavyweight, Alex Pereira did not look like himself. I don't know what it was going into this fight. Magomed did not look like he was landing stronger strikes than any of Alex's former opponents. But albeit Ankalaev got the nod, I disagree with it strongly. I think that Alex won 3-2, won 3 and 5. But whatever, the UFC wants to buckle in for a boring champion who will probably have an interim champion at every defense and fight once a year in Abu Dhabi. I hope that Alex Pereira gets the rematch, and I hope he comes around and realizes that he can use his striking to win. If not, Alex, move up, please, and fight either Jones or Aspinall. We're in for dark days in the light heavyweight division. A guy whose best win was Anthony Smith is now the champion, and what can I say? Terrible title fight. Bad way to end the card. A card that was okay. It obviously lost some talent with Curtis Blades and Chris Gutierrez losing out on their fights. Probably the worst fight of the entire card. Definitely, based on my ranking, outside of the Lemos and Lucindo fight. Next week, I will get for you guys up a ranking every championship fight, and this really shook up my rankings. I was almost certain that Pereira was going to win. Obviously, I held off on making that video in case Ankalaev won, and he did. So we're going to hit the drawing board, make up that ranking for you guys, and get that out next week. But in the meantime, do you guys agree with my rankings of the fight here for 13? I think it was an overall good card. Obviously, majority of the fights being B and up. Some of the fights were a bit more disappointing than others, going into them with the fighters that we had at, facing off. And the main event was just absolutely disappointing. If you're cheering for Ankalaev, I hope that you have a terrible day. We'll see you guys next time.